It's 2.5 years since Libya's transitional government declared the country liberated from the 44-year rule of Muammar Gaddafi and his dynasty. Well, the years that followed have been marked by instability, political flux, and a growing unease that chaos could return at any moment. On Sunday, Libya's interim Prime Minister Abdullah Al-Tini announced his resignation, making him the country's second Prime Minister in 2 months to leave his post. The announcement was made following reports of an armed attack on the Prime Minister and his family on Saturday night. For a country already divided and facing widespread unrest and militia violence, this sudden change is likely to compound the difficulties faced by the government. To assess what lies ahead, we're joined now by the journalist Nabila Ramdani, who is a commentator on North African affairs. Nabila, thank you very much for coming on the show. How significant is this resignation?
Well, this is another terrible example of the grave security situation which exists in Libya and the huge difficulty the country is having building a democratic system following the Arab Spring revolt. And Prime Minister Abdullah Al-Sini is stepping down for the very simple reason that he's absolutely terrified about attacks, not only against him but also against his family. They have had their lives threatened and can no longer continue in such high-profile public positions. And the very first priority of any functioning society is to keep its citizens alive, and especially its elected leaders. But there is clearly too much of a risk in Libya. And as you rightly reminded the audience, the previous Prime Minister, Ali Zaidan, was himself briefly abducted by a militia group from Tripoli only a few weeks ago. And these are the kinds of tactics which elected politicians are up against. And Zaidan was then pushed out of office in a no-confidence vote by the parliament. But what was actually at stake is a vote of no confidence in the entire system of government. But these attacks on politicians are just one of a few of many, in fact, and ones which exemplify the way armed gangs are now pretty much in control.
The situation in Libya, do you think that the country at this stage is kind of ungovernable?
Well, very much so. I mean, another example of how Libya is struggling with the nuts and bolts of democracy is the trial of two sons of Muammar Gaddafi, Saif al-Islam and Saadi, who are due to appear in court today alongside dozens of other senior members of the former regime. The International Criminal Court and other human rights organizations have expressed concern over the fairness of the Libyan justice system. And it just shows that Libya is struggling with the administration of justice, but also sound government in general and every aspect of democracy. I mean, for instance, Saif al-Islam, who is currently held by the Western Zintan militia group, is expected to appear in court via video link because the Zintan brigade doesn't trust the people in Tripoli and the central government in Tripoli, who they believe cannot provide a secure trial. So this is a very good example of how nobody effectively trusts each other and that there is no effective central government. The rule of law has been suspended across the country, and it leaves a big question mark over the trial. And let's not forget that among those who have been threatened, intimidated, and even killed are judges, prosecutors, and witnesses. So this is not, very reassuring as to the state of, things in Libya at the moment.
Tell me, the roadmap ahead, what positive things could be done? Obviously, in the aftermath of the overthrow of Colonel Gaddafi, there was a sense that the West would come along and kind of provide institutions and capital to help rebuild the country. And there was, a moment, it seemed, of hope there. But now when you look, you get the sense that, all of these North African countries, whether successful or not successful, when they grapple with the Western version of democracy, it kind of doesn't work. And what they really need is, unfortunately, is a kind of a strong man at the helm.
Well, in my view, the the road ahead is clearly a worrying one. But I think we also have to hold our hope that this is, a rough road or rugged road to democracy. No society has been built overnight. Even mature democracies and the rule of law and indeed security take a long time to be established. The problem Libya has is its unique position of tribal groups, none of which has a great deal of trust for one another, nor indeed inclination to work together. And it was always said, you're right, that Gaddafi's devious secret was an ability to reconcile warring tribes through cruelty and indeed cunning. And he certainly succeeded in stabilizing the country, although many rightly thought that the cost in human rights and violation and the like, human rights violations and the like, was unacceptable. And that is in effect why we saw an Arab Spring revolt in Libya and where the West collaborated in Gaddafi's destruction.
And finally, can you tell me, do we know who will be the new Prime Minister? And again, who's going to lead the country now?
Well, there is no indication as of yet about who is going to step in effectively, although Abdullah al-Thani has said that he would, although he was stepping down, he would stay in charge of a caretaker government, for when the transition would happen effectively. But, all politicians would clearly be fearful to step in such a high-profile position given the precedents. So it really is a worrying development.
Nabila, thank you very much for joining us. That was Nabila Ramdani with the news that Libya's Prime Minister Abdullah al-Thani has stepped down because of threats against his family over the weekend.